So we're going to segue just a little bit. And this next question is really something for, I'd like to open and ask Dr. Zhou, Mr. Mohan, or Mr. Del Socorro, from your own point of view as well, what is the current status of the regional cooperation on acid deposition and air pollution? So we're looking at it from a pulse check, if you will. So what's happening now? And what are the plans for the near term? So if there's anything beyond the MTP that you'd like to highlight, and also ways in which there might be some strategic opportunities or roles to strengthen, we'd really want to hear what's behind the scenes, what's happening. Would any of the three of you like to take the first response for this question? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, as for what I was mentioning earlier, EANET has done a very good job to actually address many of the difficulties to actually get the cooperation up to this present state for 20 years. And that's one point that I already acknowledged that was shared by the previous speaker, was actually the contribution of all the countries to continuously contribute for the last 20 years the funding that they have been given. So it actually reflects the seriousness of all the nations to actually be a part of this organization and to contribute significantly and to see it actually grow in the future. Now, there are many, from what there's ample opportunity actually for EANET now to actually take this further with regard to actually bringing in the member countries, and to a certain extent even the non-member countries involved actively. There are certain rules. Firstly is, I'm not going to go to the MTP, but the MTP is important because what it does is that it suggests that EANET is open and actually strengthening this framework to actually keep what was working in the previous MTP, bring it in the future, so that these sort of activities that was actually successful are continuously carried out. So that's an important point. Now, the second thing is, as was mentioned by the previous speaker with regard to satellite technology. Now, this discussion on bringing in satellite-based observations with regard to air pollution observation had started, at least I was aware, during the SAP meeting in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, it was brought up by Dr. Gromov. So this is a good opportunity for EANET to actually take into, because one is EANET has good room for training, and I think they do have the experts. So on the first aspect is that they can actually get people, the people to actually come and train people from the member countries with regard to these aspects. So that will be the first part of it. The second part of it may be actually forming a platform whereby regional observation is done. Okay, but where the reporting thing may be EANET, but it involves members, it involves participants from all member countries. So that is one. Second would be to actually bring sustainable development goals when EANET now is looking into collaboration with member countries and non-member countries. Because when you actually bring in sustainable development goals, you're actually bridging the gap here actually. So, and sometimes policymakers may actually view sustainable development goals in a more open, with a more open attitude. Now, with regard to Southeast Asia, there is an Asean agreement. Now, it specifically mentions, it's called the Asean Agreement on Transboundary Haze Pollution, where Part 3 under the Technical Composition and Scientific Research, specifically Article 16 and 17, it actually talks about whereby ASEAN can actually deal with external agencies with regard to various aspects in tackling this issue of transboundary haze pollution. And these issues and this actually, the areas involved include sharing of technology, training, discussions, and so forth. And there is another platform in ASEAN, which is called the ASEAN Plan of Action on Science, Technology, and Innovation, APASTI for short, with a term looking from 2016 to 2025. So at least within the Asean region, these are actually certain areas where, I mean, it affords good room for EANET to get into. I will stop here because I'm sure others have also contributions to give. Thank you.
Yes, good. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. So very nice to hear all the panelists explaining their views about what EANET can do in terms of international collaborations and also future opportunities and challenges that we might face in the future and now as well. So I would like to, like hearing, especially from the general lecture that Konsiwapon explained to us, and also hearing a flashback that we hear from other colleagues as well. I think there are three things that I probably can point out from the discussions. I think first of all, when it comes to international corporations that we might think about EANET. So first is I hear some colleagues mention about what we want to do in the future. So what we can do, what we want to do, what we have, and then what we can do in the future. So when it comes to what we want, first of course, it's very clear that we want to do more. I think to tackle more environmental challenges, to tackle more, to bring more impacts to environmental challenges, and also to link our as the position issues to other related problems, environmental problems. So this actually clear what we want in now and in the future. So what we're gonna do in the future. And then also I see colleagues has been explaining what we have. So I hear many times, I think, from the presentations of Dr. Konsiwapon mentioning about the importance of EANET data. So we have a rigorous, very extensive EANET data available in the website. This is actually a very valuable resources that can be used by researchers and also studies for further studies. So another one is actually existing program. So we are 20 years into governmental networks. We built networks not only at the regional level, but also at national level. We have national centers in 13 participating countries. So we have existing programs that we already organized for more than 2 decades. So that's actually our resources as well. And then one most important thing that we probably don't mention so much, actually, our existing champions. We have champions everywhere in 13 countries. We have our national focal points, we have SAC members, we have national centers, and we have training alumni. They are spread all over 13 countries, and they are actually our resources. They can support us when we plan of extending the role of EANET in the future. These champions actually the person that we need to engage in the future as part of our resources and planning to do more for EANET to yet impact, magnify the benefit for beneficiaries. So when it comes to what we can do, I hear many explanations from colleagues what we can do. I think I heard Mr. Mohan mention about the role of planning MTP, having the plan is most important thing, and we did it every year. Actually, we have, I think Konsiwapon in her presentations mentioned about the cycle of MTP since 2005. Yeah, so I think that's very much long, and how it has been going on, and how we're going to plan everything very thoroughly. And most important also to create synergy. So because as the position not a standalone issues, there are so many other linkages aspects that we might need to think about. So all our speakers have been elaborated these aspects, which one that we linkages that should be bring. But having this planning, a very good planning, we discuss about MTP, we discuss about work program and budget, we discuss about issues that what we're going to expand in the future. That's exactly our what we can do. So I think during this event, I think we can also summarize inputs from everyone, from speakers and also from panelists, and then we can move forward with a more rich discussions for our meetings and also a platform.
So I'm very impressed by the comments from the panelists from the countries. In fact, I was involved in EANET from 20 years ago. So from 1999, that's the second year of the EANET establishment for the tentative activities of the EANET. I'd like to emphasize that all EANET countries agreed to the expansion of the scope of EANET. In other words, the improvement of the EANET very actively. And so we are now discussing the creating. How to do in actual manner right now in a working group or intergovernmental meeting of EANET. But it's not, though it's not easy to reach a consensus, but the perspective is very right. I expect because all countries are very positive to improve the EANET by ourselves. So, and especially right now, it's a very important point is to seek the cooperations with other entities outside of EANET, not only for activities, but financially. Anyway, I'm very impressed by this progress after working at 20 years in EANET. Thank you very much.
I think from my experience working with EANET, and of course coming from, we are not of course part of the intergovernmental team, but more from as a partner of EANET. I think one of the key things, and we're hoping to be able to strengthen this further, is really how to be able to use some of the very rich monitoring data that is available from the network, and how we could transform that into monitoring progress of policy action. So for example, as I mentioned earlier, through the data monitoring over the past 20 years that EANET has done, it has been able to show us, of course, that there has been some declining trend in terms of sulfur dioxide concentrations in the region. But what would have been, I think, a much nicer presentation is to be able to link some of those aspects on data to the policy actions that the governments here in Asia Pacific, and maybe plus at least starting with the 13 countries that we have implemented. And we know that there has been quite a lot. I mean, earlier, Mr. Zhou from our colleague from China has been explaining some of the initiatives that the Chinese government has done to be able to address acid deposition and air pollution. And we know that that has contributed, but to make that concrete link is something that is still very much I think missing. And if you allow me to just expand on that further, as I mentioned, as part of I think UNEP's mandate from the UN Environment Assembly, we are requested by member states to be able to report progress on actions that governments are taking all across the world to help reduce air pollution, and having data, good quality data that is verified through a very sound technical process is really very important for us to be able to demonstrate that actions that countries are taking result in improvement in air quality. Because sometimes I think the information to be able to say that is not available, and not even just to be able to look at past policies that are being implemented, but even looking forward, for us to be able to say that implementation of X numbers of policies in our region will be able to help us achieve X improvement in air quality levels, I think is very key. And at least personally, I think that EANET has a very important role and could be like a leading network to be able to say, a voice in that regard, to be able to say that, we can improve air quality by this much if countries within our region does this based on the monitoring that we have collected over these past years. Over. Thank you.
Well, in terms of best practices, I think this is also more connected also in the current status of the EANET. Like 20 years ago, it's just data gathering, data assessment. And now EANET wants to do more. And it's expanding not only on acid rain only, but on air pollution. And we are looking forward for best practices also not only in reduction on acid rain, but on the main source itself, which is the air pollution. So 20 years have passed, and we have encountered a lot of challenges, and we are also looking forward for capacity building and experiences from other EANET network countries on different best practices. Like for example, right now, we have expanded up to 109 air quality monitoring stations. All of it are US EPA reference method, and it's quite expensive. And just like Ms. Patu says, there are countries who are practicing best practices on the use of low-cost air quality sensors. And by the way, air quality sensors are part of the EANET expansion activities. So if we could look forward to non-reference methods, and this will be a great help in expanding our monitoring systems, and also in addressing the financial concerns on air quality monitoring. Another thing is best practices on the conduct of emission inventory. From 20 years ago, from our researchers, it's only the US AP42, the European Corin Air, and the Australian NPI who have come up with their emission factors in conducting emission inventory. And if there are some practices that will be representative of the ASEAN calculation on estimation and emission inventory, we are also looking forward to that. And another thing is the policies, like our EANET network countries, on how they are able to resolve their problem on air pollution, how they're able to come up with a clear policy on the motor vehicle sources, how they're able to implement cleaner fuels or the use of Euro 4 and higher engines, and also what are the roadmaps in the future of transport, like the dependency on fossil-fired, on petroleum fuels. And right now, I think there are very good best practices in the use of hybrids and electric vehicles, and I think both will also address problem on air pollution. And same thing with the power sector on countries that are still relying its energy on coal-fired power plants. And I think those things that I think we could learn from best practices from our EANET partners. Thank you.
The EANET has done good work or excellent work during the past 20 years. Because during the past 20 years, the EANET focused on the monitoring, and the EANET not only collecting the monitoring data, but also have done a lot of work on the capacity building, on how to improve the methodology of the monitoring. And from China, and I think we learn a lot from the capacity building activities in the past EANET activities. And I think maybe everyone know, because the Chinese government attach most importance on how to solve the environmental problem. And during the past 20 years, and China has how to say, had improved a lot on the air quality. And maybe in the future, and we also support, and we think it's the time for EANET to expand the scope. And we also think that it's a very good opportunity for EANET to share more best practices or examples to another participating countries in the EANET mechanism, because the most countries of EANET is developing countries, and also including China. And we from China's experience, to how to say, to combat the air pollution, and the capacity building is a very useful method, or is a very important measure to help us to improve the air quality. For example, and we have some one city, one method to to solve the problem. And we'll say we have different methodology or different treatment to different industries. So I think in future we looking for the EANET to how to say, to implement more capacity building activities. For example, the policy dialogue will help the developing countries to develop the midterm national action plan on the air quality improvement. Also, how to develop the low cost and high efficiency environment, the air pollutant treatment technology, etc. So that's why I would like to share with you. Thank you.
I look at various materials from EANET. I was pleasantly surprised with the number of annual report on data. Whether it's a data report on dry deposition amounts, dry trend, inland annual trend, and so on and so forth. So this is certainly quite unique, and it should be well regarded as a best practice. Again, going back to the point raised by Mr. Jundy, he was highlighting the sources of air pollution. So now, until now, EANET has been really building its capacity, expertise, and data. But so I'm wondering whether it could have expanded to really look at, analyze not only the data per se, but really sources of emissions. Looking at more how to control emissions that pose this level of acid deposition. So that would be quite important to move from current best practice to new direction. And then as Mr. Zhou just highlighted, I mean, he was highlighting the capacity building, but he was highlighting capacity building not only acid deposition, but more broadly, including national action plan, developing national policy dialogue to assist in developing national action plan. So building on the best practices, successful experience in high quality data completion and presentation. I really, from one of our relevant initiative, I wish to see EANET can move on to this area. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Especially emphasizing not only strengthening the data, but also the ways in which we source the data and different ways of doing so. We can learn from different experiences within and without, beyond the network too.